Hello everyone, this is your friend Naruto Nexus 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto x Haku x Harem, Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Konoha Gates Noon. Wow! Shouted the twins, as they looked upon the massive stone and wood structure that were the gates of Konoha. If you think this is awesome, just wait until I show you the rest of the city. Exclaimed Naruto as the group started to make its way to the Hokage Tower. This place is rather interesting, said a rather withdrawn Haku, but before Naruto could comment on her, to him, strange new behavior, Zabuza asked, "Where are we going?" The Hokage Tower, in order to report on the mission, get the four of you situated, and to show what Naruto retrieved for his clan. Explained Kakashi. You mean our clan? Shouted Kihi as he playfully bopped Kakashi on the head from his position on the Naruto clone. Yo Naruto, I didn't think you had it in you. Two kids, when do I get to meet the mother? Shouted a familiar voice. As they all turned they saw that it was Team 8 and the one who had yelled was a boy named Kiba who had black slit-like pupils, no irises, red fang-shaped tattoos on his cheeks, and was for some reason wearing a fur-lined winter coat with a dog named Akamaru on top of his head, and wearing his leaf Hittite on his forehead. Why do you humans love dogs so much? They may be loyal, but that's because they're stupid. Now if you had a fox clan, that I would understand. Commented the fox. Actually dog breath, this is my Ototo-kun Uzumaki Kihi and my Imouto-chan Uzumaki Asagao. Said Naruto, trying to hold in his laughter at the Kyuubi's remark, to the gobsmacked team, as Team 7 continued on to the Hokage Tower. Kiba, pulling out of his disbelief first, caught up to the team, put his hand on Kihi's shoulder and said, "I feel your pain." "Oi," shouted Naruto, "just for that, I'm not going to give you the thing I was gonna." "Oh, and what's that, an excuse for me to kick your again?" "No, I was going to give you something I found on our mission, but never mind." "NN Naruto-kun, why you shouldn't judge Kiba so harshly," stuttered a girl named Hinata. She had blue hair, white pupil-less eyes, a fur-lined lavender jacket, and a perpetual blush, and was wearing her Hittite around her neck like Naruto's Uzu-1. Alright, grumbled the blonde as he put down Asagao. "Here, I thought you might like these," he said, unsealing the Demon Brothers gauntlets. "Holy shit, these things are awesome," shouted Kiba who had stars in his eyes. "Dumbass, where did you get those?" asked their sensei, a woman named Kurenai. She had red eyes, black hair, and a dress that looked to be made out of bandages with a thorned plant stem pattern, with a single red sleeve, with her Hittite like Kiba's. "All right kid, I gotta say that I approve of that one too. I got them off of the Demon Brothers," started Naruto. "Kurenai," the woman offered. "Kurenai sensei." Naruto finished. "The Demon Brothers. How on earth did you get those from them?" she asked. "Spoils of war, Kurenai sensei," responded Naruto as he handed the gauntlets to Kiba, picked up Asagao again, and the group continued on to the tower. "A little large, don't you think?" asked the last member on the team, a boy named Shino, with black sunglasses, slightly gravity-defying brown hair, and a large coat with the collar up covering everything up to his nose, wearing his Hittite like Kiba's and Kurenai's. "I know a place where you could probably get them fitted," said Naruto. "Really? Where?" asked Kiba, as the group entered the Hokage Tower. "It's a place called Higurushi's. I know that place, it's supposed to be one of the best in the village," said Sakura. "I've also got a little personal business to take care of there," commented Naruto. The three groups of ninja and two civilians, after waiting a little, entered the Hokage office to give their reports. Kurenai then gave her report for Team 8's successful D-rank mission and went back in line to listen to Team 7's report with her genin. "We met up at the gates at 7:30, started Kakashi. Hokage's office 10 minutes later. And then we left Arashi-san behind and made our way here. Finished Kakashi to the dumbstruck Hokage. Holy shit. Naruto has a Kekkei Genkai. Screamed a disbelieving Kiba. Yep, responded the blonde as he held up his hand to allow his blood to flow out to make a perfect model of Akamaru. Wow. Due to the dangers and the effects of the C-ranked mission, I will be marking it down as an A-ranked mission in each of your records. However, you will only be getting the standard C rank fare. As for the B rank, I'd like to have a word with Sasuke before I pass judgment. Stated the Hokage. He then turned to Zabuza and Haku, so you two would like to become citizens of Konoha. And why should I let two missing nins join my forces? Asked the old man. Haku here was never actually a shinobi, so she's just a civilian with the Hyouden Kekkei Genkai, so no one would care if she joined a village. As for me, Kiri is too embroiled in their civil war to really care if I join a village. Also, I can teach kenjutsu and things like that to anyone I deem fit. Responded the demon. What do you think, Kakashi? Inquired the Hokage. I'd say give them a chance, said the Cyclops. Very well, Momochi Zabuza, you are hereby instated as a Junin of Konohagakure. You will be given an apartment, a leaf Hitai 8, and a Junin flak jacket, and a dojo if you request it, but will be placed under a year's probation. Meaning no solo missions over AC rank, no traveling outside the village other than for missions, a tale of Anbu inside the village, and you will be spending the night in the T&I department. Yuki Haku, 1. You will be given the rank of Chunin, with the same stipulations as Zabuza, but if you wish to work in the hospital you may. Do either of you have a problem with this? Actually, I would be appreciative if my daughter could live with me. Replied Zabuza. Oh, daughter. All right then. Thank you Hokage-sama. Replied Haku. All right Naruto-kun, I'd like you to tell me exactly what you found inside that vault. Asked the Hokage. All right Gigi, but first, I'd like everyone but Kakashi-sensei, Asagao-chan, and Kihi-kun to leave. Kiba, wait outside and I'll take you to that armament store I was telling you about to get those claws fitted. Responded Naruto, shocking everybody there that he could call the most important and powerful man in the village, Gigi. What? It was just getting to the good part. Complained Kiba as he and the rest of his team left. Why can't we stay? Asked Sakura as Sasuke nodded. Because your mission client, your sensei, and your Hokage say so. Replied the third. I want to see what he found, so I'm staying. Replied Sasuke. You will leave. Now, said the Hokage. After a little bit of grumbling Sasuke finally left. All right Jiraiya, you can come out now. Hiruzen told a seemingly empty piece of wall. All right sensei, said a man who seemingly materialized out of thin air. He had long, spiky white hair, a horned Hitai with the kanji for oil, wooden geta, and green battle kimono with a red vest. Who are you? Asked Naruto. Who am I? I am the man who makes other men shake in fear, the man who makes women swoon with just a look, the man with the never-ending charisma, the world-renowned author, one of the Densetsu no Sannin, the legendary Toad Sage, Jiraiya. The man shouted doing a strange dance. Never heard of you. Naruto told the man who then face-faulted, so what are you doing here? Your family were seal experts, and since I have the most knowledge of them, I'm here to make sure nothing explodes and kills us all. Replied the Sannin. You're a seal master. After Jiraiya nodded he asked, can you teach me to be one too? I want to do my family proud. Sorry Gaki, I only teach apprentices. Now first of all I'd like to see this journal you found. Asked the Hokage. Before that, I'd like to make a few requests Gigi. Asked Naruto. And what would those be? I would like to apply for clan status, adopt Kihi-kun and Asagao-chan as my siblings, and put them into the academy. I don't see why any of those things would be a problem. Your family was a clan once, just in a different village. you just need to be at least Chunin to be a clan head though. The children are your actual blood and flesh family, so there aren't any legal loopholes to stop you from adopting them, and anyone can go into the academy if they so choose. They'll just have to wait until the beginning of the next academic year, he said as he took out several forms. Naruto nodded and then placed the journal, the letter regarding his new Haori along with said garment, the 2 summoning contract scrolls, the sealing scrolls, and the swords on the desk. He then motioned his new siblings to do the same. Medical seals. I don't suppose you could let me see those, could you, Gaki? Asked an interested Sanin, as the third picked up the journal and began to read. Sorry, but only clan members can learn those, replied a smug blonde as he filled out the paperwork and described everything his clones had found. Smartass, thought an amused Jiraiya as he started to read the letter regarding the Haori. After the 2 of them had both finished reading the journal and the letter, they looked at the summoning scrolls, finding them legitimate. They then asked what was in the scrolls. All the stuff in the initial chamber is in this one, the IDs are in this one, and this one I have no idea because it was just sitting there with the summoning contracts, replied the blonde, indicating the scrolls one by one. All right Naruto, I will make the announcement about your clan tonight. Come here at around 7 for the meeting with the council. After that I'll show you to one of the empty compounds of the village set aside for new clans where you can show me the rest of what you found, said Hiruzen. Gigi, I'd like to request that a shrine be erected in the compound so that I can place these IDs there and so that my future clan's men may remember the fallen. Of course Naruto, when we go there, I will bring a carpenter friend of mine and he will build one wherever you ask. All right Gigi, if that's all, I'd like to show my now family and friends around the village, said the Jinchuriki. Very well, dismissed, replied the Hokage. Naruto and his siblings then retrieved everything that they had put on the desk and left the office. After the 3 of them had left, Jiraiya turned to the Hokage and asked, are you sure about this? I mean, the council is going to go ballistic if the Gaki tries to start a clan. I don't really care, he has all the right in the world to do so. All the members of his clan have innate understanding of seals, chakra that is more potent than normal, life forces that make it almost impossible to kill them unless you aim for the heart or the brain, and even then sometimes they survive, as well as Naruto having his Kokutsu. Did you see Asagao-chan? She was reading that scroll on medical seals, and she didn't even look fazed. And the weapon that Kihi-kun had sounded like a formidable tool. What if the council demands that he hands everything over to one of the other clans? Asked Kakashi. I'll tell them that if one of the clans wants something, they will have to give him something of equal value of theirs in return, said Hiruzen. What of the girl, Haku? Wondered a concerned Jiraiya. I will place her under my protection, to keep her away from people like Danzo, said the third sternly. Will you teach Naruto? Asked Kakashi of Jiraiya. I'll teach him seals, at least until you say it's alright to teach him other things, like the toad summon if he doesn't want to sign either of the ones he got in Uzu, and I'll teach him the Rasengan during the Chunin exams. I don't really mind, you can teach him anything you wish. But before that, Hokage-sama, I'd like to recommend Naruto for either Anbu, or special Junin on the basis of his chakra reserves that are almost as high as yours, as well as his exceptional sneaking and trap-making skills, as well as his sealing capabilities, said Kakashi. To say that both of the other men were shocked would have been an understatement of the century. Do you really think that he's ready for that kind of work? Asked the Hokage. He has been able to sneak around in, kill me, Orange, pranking people including yourself, and every clan in this village, several of which are renowned for their censors. A testament of this is when he painted the Hokage mountain in broad daylight, wearing said orange, not get caught until after he started screaming at the village and banging paint cans together. And then outrun several Junin and Chunin, and only get caught by Iruka, who has proven time and time again to be the only one to catch him, as well as sneak into the Hokage mansion and steal the forbidden scroll the night he became a genin, not to mention that he was able to infiltrate both Zabuza's base and Gato's mansion, gathering intel which allowed us to complete the mission, save several lives, and bring a bloodline to this village. As for his seals, while we were on the mission, he was able to learn weight seals, as well as 3 types of barrier seals, 1 non-elemental, 1 Dodan, and 1 futon. He also learned the Kaden barrier seals while on the way, in, and from Uzu 2-3. And while they may have been rather weak barrier seals, they would be able to trap anyone of Chunin level skills. Very well Kakashi, if I believe he has done well enough in the Chunin exams, I will promote him accordingly. Responded the oldest man in the room. Maybe I should teach the Gaki as soon as possible. Mused the self-proclaimed super pervert, and the Uchiha. While he will have the B rank in his record, he will not receive pay, he will also be receiving a permanent mark on his record for insubordination. Responded the Hokage. Don't you think that's a little harsh? Asked Kakashi. No, I don't. It is the same punishment that I would give anybody, including you and Jiraiya. Very well Hokage-sama, said the Cyclops as he too left the office. Outside the Hokage's office. All right Naruto, where's this place you were telling me about? Asked Kiba. I'm going there now with the little ones, so you can just follow me. Zabuza-san, Haku-chan, I can show you around the village if you don't mind a little detour first. Said Naruto. I don't mind, said Haku as Zabuza simply shrugged. Great. So just follow me and I'll show you guys a good time, right guys? Asked Naruto to his siblings. Aye sir. 4. Higurushi's shop. Here we are, shouted the blonde. Higurushi's I've heard of this place. Thought Zabuza as the group walked in. Welcome to Higuru, Naruto. How's it going? Haven't seen you in a while, what do you need? Said the girl behind the counter who turned out to be Tenten. Well Ten-chan, I was on AC rank so I've been gone a while. I am showing my new family and a couple of friends around the village and Kiba here would like a new weapon of his fitted, and these two are about to enter the academy. I'd also like to talk to your old man about something. Responded Naruto. Hello there, what are your names? Asked Tenten of the twins. This is Kihi, said Asagao. This is Asagao, continued Kihi. And this is Araniki. They both finished, doing the same pose that they did when they introduced Arashi, making everybody who was there sweat drop. Nice to meet you. I'm Ten-Ten. Name's Kiba, and this is Akamaru, shouted Kiba as Akamaru barked from on top of his head. My name is Haku, Ten-Ten-san, and this is Zabuza-sama. Said Haku, bowing to the girl. Okay, said Ten-Ten, not really comfortable with the formality. I'll go get him Naruto. Thank you. After Ten-Ten left, the group started going around the store just browsing. Once again, Kihi immediately headed for the weapons section along with Naruto, Asagao headed for a selection of battle kimonos, Kiba waited by the counter along with Haku and Zabuza. After about 5 minutes pass, Tenten came back with a man who they could only assume was her father. He was an average-sized man, well-muscled, had salt and pepper hair, and was completely covered in leather except for his head, which had a pair of black goggles on top. Hello there. I am the owner of this fine establishment, you can call me Higurushi, everyone does. Said the man rather cheerfully. Hello Higurushi-san, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, I'd like to talk matters both personal and professional with you, and my friend here would like to get something fitted for him. Said Naruto. Very well Uzumaki-san, I'll take your friend's measurements first and then we'll talk. Responded Higurushi, now completely business. Kiba then placed the gauntlets on the counter and allowed the man to take his measurements. After he was done he took the gauntlets away telling Kiba to come back in 3 days with the payment amount which, luckily, the genin could in fact pay. All right, Uzumaki-san, follow me and we can talk. Naruto then followed the man down a hallway and into a small room with a desk, and 3 chairs, one behind it and 2 in front. As Higurashi sat behind his desk, he motioned for Naruto to get comfortable. Now, what is it that I can do for you? He asked the genin. Instead of answering, Naruto took off his haori and put it on the desk along with the letter. He then took out his one remaining empty sealing scroll, several explosive notes, and 4 of each barrier seal. This is all rather nice, and I haven't seen barrier seals for years, but what do they have to do with me? Well, Higurashi-san, I was hoping to thank you. While you may not have made this haori personally, it did come from here, Naruto replied, indicating the letter which Higurashi picked up and started reading. I was wondering if you could recreate and or repair it if asked to for me and my young siblings when they become genin. As for the scroll, tags and seals, I was wondering if I could sell them to you. And why would I be interested in buying your seals? Asked the man who had just finished the letter. Because I made them. I was hoping to make a deal with you. I provide you with seals, and you provide me with a cut, as well as the necessary materials with which to make them. And as I learn how to make new seals, I show them to you, and you decide whether or not you wish to sell them with the same conditions. Answered the blonde. Very well, I'll give you a 20% cut, since I'll be the one providing the materials to make them. You will come in once a week to maintain a number of tags and such which we will agree upon at a later date. 5. As for the haori, you provide me with the seals and yeah, I could make and maintain a few for you. But, before we do anything, I'd like to test the authenticity of your work. I'd like you to make each of these things in front of me, and activate it. For the barrier seals, I do know a clone jutsu or 2. Actually, Higurashi-san, I know the Kage Bunshin Jutsu, shadow clone technique, so I can use them to test the barrier seals. Is that right? Very well then, come out back and we can get started. Stated the store owner as he led Naruto out of the building. All right, Higurashi-san, one moment please. Asked the genin as he pulled out his sealing supplies. The first thing that he made was an explosive tag. He then slapped it on a tree, walked back to the man, and activated it. The resulting explosion blew the tree in half. He then took a blank scroll and made a new seal on it. Afterwards he dragged the top half of the tree on top of the scroll and with a poof, it vanished. Next, he took a rather large rock and handed it to the older man. After the man held it in his hand for a few seconds to feel its weight, he gave it back to Naruto, who started to write a new seal directly on the stone. When he was finished, he handed it to Higurashi again, who started pumping chakra into it, feeling it get heavier and heavier. He then flared his chakra twice in quick succession, making the extra weight disappear. 6. Finally, he made 31 clones. 16 of the Narutos then took out a piece of paper and wrote seals in 4 groups of 4. They then separated into 4 groups of 8, each with 4 in a square pattern, 7, 2 inside the square, and 2 outside the square. The first group of Narutos in a square then placed the seals on the ground with each of them inside the barrier facing out. 1 on the inside, and 1 on the outside then punched the barrier, showing that it was like punching a wall. They then threw kunai at the barrier and they simply bounced off. The barrier was then lowered as the 2 Narutos dispelled, and the 4 in the square position switched so that they were outside the barrier facing in. They then did the same round of tests with the same results. After the barrier had been proven effective, all 8 Narutos dispelled. The next group was the Doden barrier group. They did the same rounds of tests, starting this time with the kunai test. While the 4 in the square were facing out, the kunai thrown from the inside simply bounced off, while the ones on the outside simply fell with a dull thud, the reverse being true when the 4 were on the outside facing in. When the Narutos punched the barrier, while it had the same effects, it was simply isolated to each Naruto's arm. After that group had dispelled, the Kaden group was up. The group once again started with the kunai test, with the ones on one side bouncing off, and the ones on the other side bursting into flames. With the punch test, the ones on one side simply hit while the clones on the other's arm burst into flames. Finally, there was the futon barrier. The group once again started with the kunai test, with the ones on one side bouncing off, and the ones on the other side being cut in half. With the punch test, the ones on one side simply hit while the clones on the other's arm got littered with little cuts, all the way to the elbow, that alone wouldn't really do anything, but together would quickly become a problem. 8. 9. After the whole display was finished, Higurashi stood there for about a minute and said, very well, I will sell your seals with the agreed upon conditions. Pleasure doing business with you, Higurashi-san. A word of warning though, these seals are GHE basic elemental seals, and while they can capture anyone up to Chunin levels, anyone with adequate sealing abilities, which apparently no one does, can rewrite the seals, and those with high enough chakra levels can simply overload them. Also, they can't cover a large amount of distance, so the seals can be at most 5 yards away from one another. 10. Said Naruto as he shook the man's hand. I'll make sure to put that on the box, just make sure you come to me with any new seals you make. Come back tomorrow and we'll iron out the details. As Naruto turned back to leave, he realized that he had gotten an audience. Well done, Gaki. I think I have just reconsidered teaching you seal work, said Jiraiya as the group left the area. What changed your mind? Asked the dubious blonde. Well, it was mostly the fact that you learned how to do all that in a couple of months, and books can only take you so far. You have a lot of potential, and I'll teach you other things besides sealing if you'd like. Answered the pervert as the three of them entered the main part of the shop to find that Kiba had left and the others were simply waiting for him to arrive. Aniki, can we go see the village now? Asked an impatient Kihi. Sure, Ototo-kun, answered the blonde as he led the child to the window. He then made a sweeping motion with his arm and asked, see? That's not funny, Aniki, pouted the boy as his sister giggled. All right, is there any particular place you'd like to see first? Asked Naruto of the group. How about the academy? Asked Kihi. The hospital, said Haku. The training grounds, said Zabuza. A restaurant, asked a blushing Asagao as her stomach growled. How about we go get something to eat? I'll show you guys where the academy and the hospital are, since they are close together, and then I'll take you on a tour of a few training areas. After that, I'll show you some of my favorite spots. Inquired Naruto. Sure, Aniki, agreed the twins as Haku and Zabuza nodded. Hey Gaki, I'll leave you guys to it. I'll see you when you meet back up with Sarutobi-sensei, said Jiraiya. Sure thing, Oyaji. I'm not old, you little brat, shouted an irate Toad Sage. Oyaji's funny, chorused the twins, giggling, causing Jiraiya to face fault. Whatever, he said as he left. 3 hours later, the group had just one more place to go before they finished Naruto's tour of the city. With the only things that had really happened were the group leaving Zabuza behind at one of the training grounds for a spar with a man with a green jumpsuit and massive eyebrows, 11, who Zabuza claimed offended my eyes, and Tuki at Ichiraku's going into the back room of his stand and shouting something that sounded like, I'm so proud of you, after Naruto introduced Haku, while his daughter Ayame fawned over the twins. Come on you guys, I want to show you my favorite place in the whole village, shouted an ecstatic blonde. But Aniki, I thought you said the ramen stand was your favorite place, pointed out Asagao. That's my second favorite, he amended as he led the group up a flight of stairs. After about 5 minutes of walking, the group came upon a platform on top of the Hokage mansion. Naruto then motioned the rest of them to follow him and sat down on top of the fourth Hokage's head with Asagao in his lap. Haku then sat down next to him with Kihi in her lap. This is beautiful, Aniki, remarked an odd Asagao. No wonder you like this place so much, Naruto-kun, mused Haku. Hey, Naruto-kun, you oblivious dumbass, thought the fox. You guys should come here during dawn or dusk. Naruto told them. Then they just sat there until it was time for Naruto to meet with the Hokage and the council. Hokage's office. Hello Naruto-kun, how was the tour of the Where is Zabuza-san? Asked the Hokage. The tour went great Gigi. Zabuza went off and started sparring with a guy with huge eyebrows. Responded Naruto. The Hokage then sighed and asked the Anbu in the room to go get him. Very well, I will take you to the council chambers. He then got up and led them out of the room. What is the council Gigi? Asked Kihi. Amused that there was another person who called him Gigi, he answered the boy, the council is made up of the heads of all the shinobi clans, a few of my own advisors, and some of the more prominent civilians. Wow, responded an odd Kihi. Does that mean that you'll be on the council one day Aniki? Asked Asagao. I guess so, responded Naruto as the group stopped just outside the council chambers, waiting for Zabuza to show up. Hey Gaki, said Jiraiya to Naruto. What do you want Oyaji? Stop calling me that, shouted the man. I wanted to talk about my teaching you. I was thinking that I could teach you in the afternoons after your team dismisses for the day. It was while they were discussing Naruto's training that Zabuza finally showed up covered in bruises, cuts, and filth. Choosing not to comment at the moment, the Hokage opened the door, and allowed the 5 people with him to go into the chamber first, with Jiraiya staying out. As Hiruzen took his seat, the council was whispering among itself as to what the demon brat, 2 children, a girl, and the infamous Momochi Zabuza was doing in the council chambers. Allow me to start this meeting. I would first like to introduce these 5. They are Uzumaki Naruto, Uzumaki Asagao, Uzumaki Kihi, Yuki Haku, and Momochi Zabuza. During a mission, Naruto encountered them and convinced them to come to Konoha. As of today, Yuki Haku is a Chunin of Konohagakure, and Momochi Zabuza is a Junin. He then paused to ignore the obligatory shouting. Yuki-san, while having extensive training, is in fact a civilian, and Kiri is too embroiled in their civil war to protest Momochi-san's joining of our forces. Yuki-san is a carrier of the Hyouden Kekkei Genkei, and Momochi-san is a master Kenjutsu specialist, something which we are sorely lacking in Konoha. Noticing one man in particular staring at Haku with a rather hungry look, he continued to say, and Yuki-san is to be placed under both my protection and the protection of the Sarutobi clan, so that nothing untowards will happen to her. The Nara clan offers their protection as well, said a man with black hair tied in a pineapple-shaped ponytail and 2 scars on his face. As does the Yamanaka clan, said a man with blue eyes, and blonde hair tied into a ponytail. As does the Akamichi clan, chimed in a huge man with wild red hair, old-style armor, and what looked like paint on his face. At this the man looked rather annoyed, but quickly hid it in a mask of seeming indifference. You can't hide from me you old war hawk, thought the Hokage, before he continued with his announcements. May I ask what has happened to Zabuza-san? Asked a man with gravity-defying brown hair, a high-collared gray, silver coat, and what looked like a giant flask on his back. I found a man who offended most of my senses. Green jumpsuit-wearing bastard, screaming about Kami knows what. Huffed the demon, causing many in the council to shudder, knowing of the eccentric Junin known as Guy. I would also like to announce the reformation of the Uzumaki clan in Konoha, with Uzumaki Naruto, Uzumaki Kihi, and Uzumaki Asagao as members. Stated the Hokage, pausing again for the civilian side of the council to express their outrage, while the shinobi side and the advisors looked apathetic. I would also like to announce that Genin Naruto will be instated as clan head once he becomes Chunin, and that he has gone, with my permission, to the ruins of Uzushiogakure where he found several clan artifacts and scrolls, including his haori, swords, and young Kihi's guitar. As such, I will be giving him one of the empty districts set aside for when new clans are established within the village. You can't do that, shouted one of the civilian council members. And why not? Asked a deceptively calm Hokage. You know what he is. He cannot be allowed to breed or be the head of a clan. I would have no problem if one of the children were to lead the Uzumaki clan, but not him. The man argued. Of course I know what he is a shinobi of Konoha. If that's a reason he shouldn't be a clan head, I'd like to see you tell the rest of the clan heads that. Haruswan responded as the shinobi council stared at the man who was turning rather pale at the old man's statement. And as for your insistence that one of the children would be better suited to lead the Uzumaki clan, Naruto is the only one with ninja training, and he has both a Kekkei Genkai and the highest amount of sealing expertise among them, which, as I'm sure you know, is what the Uzumakis were famous for. Hokage-sama, will the young Yuki be beginning a clan? Asked the man who had been staring at her. She has not applied for clan status, so no, she will not Danzo. Then what will she be doing and where will she live? Asked Danzo, making Haku a little uncomfortable with his interest in her. She will be living with her father Zabuza, and will be working in the hospital, as a medic nin. Stated the Hokage. Very well, acquiesced Danzo. Now, is there anything that anyone would like to ask? Asked the Hokage. What did the Gaki find? Asked a woman with frizzy brown hair, slit-like pupils, and red marks on her cheeks asked. That is a matter you will have to ask of Naruto, Sume-san, stated the Hokage. If that is all, Jiraiya and I will now be showing Naruto, Asagao, Kihi, Haku, and Zabuza to their new homes. With the completion of the council meeting, the seven of them then went to an apartment complex where the Hokage presented both Haku and Zabuza with a key. As they were about to be led to T&I by a couple of Anbu, Haku asked, "Is it alright if I come along to see Naruto-kun's compound?" "Sure Haku-chan, as long as Gigi says it's okay," responded Naruto, as Jiraiya giggled in the background. "I don't see why not." 5 minutes later the group met up with a man wearing a tool belt outside a section of the village which was walled off with a gate in the center of each of the 4 walls. Naruto could see the obviously recent addition of the Uzumaki symbol lining the wall, each about a foot in diameter, about 5 feet from one another, and halfway up the wall 12. Well, it looks impressive enough. I'd like to be the first to formally introduce you to the Uzumaki compound of Konoha, Naruto-kun, Kihi-kun, Asagao-chan. Said the Hokage as he opened the gates of the compound. The whole area was rather large, 13, there were several buildings, most of them being 2-story houses, a few were single-story or simple sheds, there were even what looked to be stores or food stands. Here and there were empty plots of land for whatever one wanted to put there, as well as several ponds, gardens, training grounds, and even a couple of onsens. In the center of the complex was a 2-story house that was easily the largest in the area. The 3 Uzumakis, for the first full minute, just stood there in awe of what would be theirs. Naruto-kun, as clan head, you will be living in the largest house in the compound. Asagao-chan, Kihi-kun, you will have to live with him at least until you become genin. At that point, you will be legal adults and can live on your own in one of these other houses. Or you may stay civilians, and wait until you are 20. The Hokage told them, snapping them out of their reverie. Now, Naruto-kun, I'd like to introduce you to Daichi, he is the man who will be making the shrine for the IDs you found. All right Gaki, I haven't got all night, where do you want it? Daichi asked rather gruffly. After a brief tour, Naruto settled on a location. It was a medium-sized clearing on the shore of a large pond, and surrounded on 3 sides by sakura trees, in the northeast corner of the compound. All right, it should only take a 2, maybe 3 weeks at the most kid. Said the man, who then proceeded to take measurements. What do you say we get you situated Gaki? Asked Jiraiya as the Hokage led the group, minus Daichi, to the clan head's house. The Hokage, along with Jiraiya, then showed the Uzumakis around their new home. When they entered, the first thing they noticed would be a staircase leading up to the second story. On the first floor there were several different rooms, including a large dining room that could seat 10 comfortably, a fully equipped kitchen with a rather large pantry and several cabinets, 2 linen closets, each adjacent to one of the 2 3/4 bathrooms, 14, a medium-sized onsen, a workroom, a small infirmary, a few empty rooms, a library, and an armory. At these last two, Naruto made several clones, gave them the sealing scrolls from the vault and told them to unpack. He also noticed that none of the rooms besides the dining room table and chairs, the equipment in the kitchen, the weapons racks in the armory, the infirmary, and the large number of shelves and bookcases, the house was completely empty, there was no furniture. After that the group made its way upstairs. There were 8 doors on that floor, one of which was a full bathroom, 2 of which were offices. Naruto placed the summoning contract and the sealing scroll from the clan head section of the vault in the biggest one, as well as the pictures of the Uzukages, and the rest were bedrooms, and unlike the rooms downstairs, they were furnished. 3 of the bedrooms were the same size, with 2 windows each, a full-sized bed, and a closet. The last bedroom was easily twice as large as the others, had a king-sized bed, 2 windows, a master bath, and a walk-in closet. It was at that point that a large amount of yelling was heard coming from downstairs in the armory, and Naruto groaned and started mumbling about crazy people. "What's wrong, Aniki?" asked a concerned Asagao. "One of my clones had an accident, Imouto-chan. Apparently, one of our family members was psychotic," said Naruto, as the noises stopped. "What do you mean, Naruto-kun?" asked Haku, who was sitting on the bed, causing Naruto to hold back a blush as the fox started making lewd comments about that particular fact. "Well, one of my clones was putting away a set of Fuma shuriken, when he found what looked to be containment seals on each of the blades. He wanted to see what was in there, so he activated it. When he did, regular-sized shuriken clones popped out of the seal about for a second for about a minute 15. Everything's fine now, but several of my clones were dispelled." "How do you know they were shuriken clones, Aniki?" asked Kihi. "They disappeared when they hit a solid surface," responded the blonde. "Sounds like a fearsome weapon, Gaki," commented Jiraiya. That could be as harmful to you as it is to your enemies, you should be careful with such a thing," said the fox. "Now that the tour is over, I must get back to work. Naruto-kun, good night," said the Hokage as he left. "Later, Gaki, Chisaimanano, 16, Jiraiya told them as he jumped out the window. "Bye, Aniki," shouted the twins as they ran out of the room to theirs. It went for about a minute, until Naruto and Haku realized they were the only ones in the room, each lost in their own thoughts. "If I'm going to be clan head, I'm going to need to be strong enough to protect those precious to me. I wonder what the future will bring." It was at that point that Naruto noticed that he and Haku were the only ones in the room, a fact that was not lost on the Kyuubi either. "You're alone. Take her now," shouted the giant fox. Naruto, holding down a huge blush, shook Haku out of her thoughts, saying, "Nay, Haku-chan, it's getting kind of late. I'll walk you to the T&I department." "All right, Naruto-kun." The two didn't say anything until they reached one of the most feared places in Konoha. At that point she gave him a hug and, blushing, she entered. Naruto simply stood there for a few minutes, then smiled and left. One month later. It had been a busy month for Naruto, even after the 3 Uzumakis got settled into their new home. It had also been rather routine for the Jinchuriki. In the mornings Naruto would make several clones to do various exercises while he trained with his team in the mornings, and then do a D-rank mission. After that he would eat lunch, sometimes with Haku, who would tell him stories of her work in the hospital or of how Zabuza would beat several Junins and Chunins into the ground, pretty much daily, for his lessons, with him telling her of his missions and training. Then he would go back to the Uzumaki district and do several exercises, mostly body conditioning and practice with a few of the weapons in the vault. He had started carrying around two of what he had dubbed the Uzumaki Shuriken. All the while, his clones again practiced jutsu, chakra control, and elemental manipulation, which he learned from his family scrolls, as well as training Kihi and Asagao who, Jiraiya told him, both had more chakra than Sakura at the moment. After he was done with the physical aspect of his training, he would then sit down with the Jiraiya and learn seals. From the white-haired man, he had learned the Suiten and Raiden barrier seals, and a few others, as well as a jutsu which allowed him to us the effects of the barrier on anything inside. 17. Naruto had also learned a few seals by himself, and was currently learning from one of the scrolls on medical seals, and thinking about a rather insane idea which he hadn't told Jiraiya of. He would go once a week to Higurushi's to renew their stock of seals, including his new ones. As for jutsu, Jiraiya had also taught him the Bunshin Daibakua, Great Clone Explosion, the Shuriken Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu, and the Kunai Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, Kunai Shadow Clone Jutsu, which he was mastering with the help of his Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone technique. He had also developed a jutsu for his bloodline where he controlled creatures he made with his blood, called Kokutsu Kai ga Kochiku no Jutsu, Black Blood Construct Jutsu. The form he used most often were foxes, cheers to Yukaiubi, and at the moment he could control 3 of them, with his eventual goal being 10. Jiraiya had even allowed Naruto to sign the Toad summoning scroll after the second week, giving Naruto a copy of the contract which he kept in his office with the others, and taught him to summon some of the smaller toads, the largest being the size of a horse, saying that he wasn't ready to meet the boss toad. As for his control, with liberal use of the Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone technique, he could cut about halfway through a leaf with Wind Chakra, and crumble half of another with his Earth Chakra. 18, and could balance a kunai on 2 fingers on each hand. The shrine had been completed after about 3 weeks, in which Naruto immediately placed the IDs. He would go there every other day with the twins to try and learn the names of all of them. Hey Gaki, we've got a B-ranked mission. Jiraiya told Naruto, who was practicing his kenjutsu stances in one of the training grounds in the Uzumaki compound, surrounded by dozens of clones. What kind of mission, Ero Sennin? Asked a dubious blonde. Jiraiya, who had earned the nickname about 3 weeks ago after Naruto found out exactly what it was he wrote, handed him a photo and told him, it's a search and retrieval mission. We need to find my old teammate, Tsunade, the single greatest medic nin alive. And stop calling me that. Why would we need to look for her? Wondered a curious whiskered genin, thinking about asking the woman to train Haku, as he looked at the picture of a blonde woman with a diamond mark on her forehead and what looked like watermelons in her shirt. One of my spies gave me some information that made Sarutobi-sensei, and I feel as though it would be better if she was to come back to the village, and I specifically asked for you to accompany me. Why? And what about my teammates? Doesn't it mean they can't do a mission if I'm out of the village? Asked Naruto, feeling a migraine coming along just thinking about Sasuke and Sakura's reactions, knowing that Kakashi wouldn't really care. I don't care about them, replied the pervert, making Naruto face fault. They can latch onto another team for a time or temporarily get a reserve genin, one that doesn't have a team. So, why me? Asked Naruto again. Is it so wrong to want to teach my apprentice something? He said as he pulled what looked to be a water balloon out of his hip pouch. Is it so wrong to want to teach my apprentice something? Jiraiya asked as he pulled what looked to be a water balloon out of his hip pouch. What is that for? Asked Naruto. I'll tell you when we hit the road, meet me at the main gate in 1 hour. Replied Jiraiya as he walked away. 2 hours later, the 2 men were on the road after notifying Naruto's friends and teammates. He had gotten the Ichirakus to watch the twins for him while on the mission, and had gotten a rather interesting hug from Haku, where she accidentally shoved his head into her cleavage, one which almost got him killed on behalf of Zabuza, and that his sensei had been teasing him mercilessly about for the last hour. All right, Ero Sanin, where are we going, and what was it you wanted to teach me? Asked Naruto, as the two shinobi walked the path. Tsunade Haim is a huge gambling addict, so we're going to wherever has the best gambling at this point and time to find her. As for what I'm teaching you, it's a move the fourth created called the Rasengan, Spiraling Sphere, a devastating move that causes major damage to whatever you hit with it, though it's exclusively a close-range attack. Explained the huge man as he pulled the water balloon out of his hip pouch again and, for no real reason, smashed it on Naruto's head. What the hell was that for? Yelled the blonde. I thought you might still be all hot and bothered since your girlfriend let you motorboat her, and you needed to cool off, responded Jiraiya with a grin. What W were N not like th that? Shish she's J just AFF friend. Stuttered Naruto with a blush that would make a tomato proud. Of course kid, whatever helps you sleep at night, said Jiraiya flippantly as he pulled another water balloon out of a seal on his wrist. Now, the Rasengan has 3 stages that you need to complete in order to use it. The first stage is rotation. Watch and learn. It was at this point that the water balloon began to gain bumps that grew and grew before popping in a shower of water and thin plastic. Now I want you to do that, and we'll move on to stage 2. You can do it on the road, said the Sannin as he pulled out another balloon before giving it to Naruto. 3 hours later, the two shinobi were just walking into a bustling town full of cheerful people, bars, stands selling various merchandise, and gambling dens. All in all, as Jiraiya would say, it was a perfect place for Tsunade Senju. Naruto on the other hand, had made little to no progress in the jutsu, only making the balloon into a pancake made of water. Damn it, what am I doing wrong, Kyuubi? Inquired the blonde to his tenant. I've already told you that I was going to stop spoon feeding you the answers. But knowing you, you'll keep bitching, so I'll give you some advice, and if you still haven't figured it out by the time you've left this village, I'll tell you the answer. Ask the pervert to show you how it's done again, and then compare your balloon to his, advised the fox as he lay down to take a nap. Sigh, I'll hold you to that. Nay, Ero Sanin, can you show me how to do this again? Asked Naruto as he offered up the balloon, halting their progress through the town. Why Gaki? Asked an annoyed Sanin, eager to visit a few houses of pleasure, in order to continue his research. I want to see what I'm doing wrong. Very well. Acquiesced the pervert as he pulled another water balloon out of the seal. Now watch closely, this is the last time I show you. As Naruto was watching, he tried to see what was different. The only thing I can think of is that his stays a sphere, and gets bumpy, while mine becomes a pancake. What does that mean? Aarrgghh. Raged Naruto inside his head. Shut the up, I'm trying to sleep. Yelled the fox. Bastard. Insulted Naruto. Hairless ape. Shot back his prisoner. Stupid plush toy, retorted the blonde. Incompetent jackass. Snapped Kyuubi. After about 5 seconds of silence, in which the two of them were mentally glaring at each other, they both bust out into laughter, causing several people to question Naruto's sanity. What's so funny, Gaki? Inquired Jiraiya, who had been watching his changing facial expressions and was now wondering if the boy had finally cracked. Nothing, I was just thinking on our different methods, and I got sidetracked, responded Naruto after he had calmed down. Our different methods? Asked the white-haired man, as he got the two of them moving again. Well, when you do it, it stays a sphere, it just gets bumpy. When I do it, it becomes a pancake. I'm trying to figure out why. Gaki, how many directions do you spin yours? Asked a curious Jiraiya, trying to see if Naruto would figure it out with a little push. I only spin it in the one direction, it's not like you can spin, damn. Responded Naruto, cursing his own stupidity, which the Kyuubi wholeheartedly agreed. After he made this epiphany, Naruto began to spin the water in the balloon, but was having difficulty doing so in more than one direction. When he commented on it to Kyuubi, the fox told him he could try it with both hands, which he did, thus allowing him to pop the balloon. The Gaki doesn't have the control to do it with one hand, so he used two. Interesting. Now that that's over, we can move on to the next stage. Jiraiya told his pupil, causing the boy to get stars in his eyes until the man beamed him in the head with a rubber ball. What the hell was that for? Demanded an irate blonde as he considered shoving the ball somewhere unpleasant for the older man. It's the next stage. The first stage was rotation, this stage is power. You simply have to pop the rubber ball like you did the water balloon, said Jiraiya as the two of them neared the hotel they were staying at. Before you go doing this half-assed, try putting as much as possible in the ball, don't hold back. If the pervert wants power, then let him have it, advised Kyuubi, thinking this was going to be rather entertaining. Shrugging, Naruto complied and shoved as much chakra as he could into the ball, and once he did, several things happened in very close succession. 1. Jiraiya sent chakra to his feet and covered his eyes with his arms and hands. 2. The rubber ball exploded. 3. Naruto was sent flying. 4. Several other people were sent flying. 5. A stand that sold takoyaki collapsed. 6. Kyuubi burst into laughter. As the blonde genin recovered from his brief flight, Jiraiya was wondering if he was going to be able to complete the third stage due to the amount of power he had displayed. Alright Gaki, I guess that you've completed the second stage, said the Sannin as he pulled out another balloon, though this one was empty. It was almost disturbing the way you did it, but it really shouldn't come as a surprise, considering who you are, I guess. Now on to the final stage, containment. He finished before blowing up the balloon. Nay, Ero Sannin, was the fourth a childish person? Asked Naruto. A little. Why? Asked a curious super pervert. Balloons and rubber balls. Good point. Anyways, the third and final stage to complete the Rasengan is containment. This is what I want you to do. As Jiraiya said this, he held up his hand with the balloon in it, thus confusing the blonde as nothing appeared to be happening. And what exactly is it that I'm supposed to be doing? Asked the blonde. Maybe this will help you figure it out, said Jiraiya as he held out his other hand and formed a perfect Rasengan. Oh, you want me to make it a sphere instead of letting all the energy out at once, why? Wondered the blonde. Maybe a demonstration is in order, said Jiraiya as he approached a large stone that was in front of the hotel. This is what happens when you do the Rasengan with only the first two stages, he said, as he thrust the incomplete Rasengan into the stone, making several scar-like marks to appear on the stone, similar to his clan's symbol. And this is what happens when you use all three stages. Finished the white-haired man as he shoved another of the jutsu into the stone, completely obliterating it. Whoa! Was the intelligent response of the blonde, awed at the magnitude to the attack. Now, you are not allowed to train within any towns that we pass through, since I don't want you to destroy anyone's property, said Jiraiya rather sagely. This coming from the man who just destroyed someone's rock. Deadpanned the blonde, causing the man to stagger slightly, but betray no other outward sign that he had heard the Jinchuriki. I'm sure I don't know what you mean, replied Jiraiya before he and Naruto got their room keys before going their separate ways, one to train, and one to gather information about their target and to do various other things I can't morally say. XXX 2 weeks later. It had been a rather interesting 2 weeks for the pair. First, Naruto had discovered his almost disturbing luck when it came to gambling, with Jiraiya immediately capitalized on, making the boy gamble, only to spend all his winnings on booze and whores. Second was the two of them going from gambling town to gambling town following, unsuccessfully, rumors of Tsunade's whereabouts and somehow staying one step behind the entire way, while Jiraiya tried to get Naruto to read his books. Finally, Naruto made at least 100 clones each day to train on the Rasengan. He was extremely grateful that every clone had on them what he had on him, or he'd have had to spend a fortune on balloons, not that he couldn't or anything. 3. Though he did stop using them after the first week, while he worked on his taijutsu, kenjutsu, and his secret project, while making sure that it stayed a secret from Jiraiya. It was a rather pleasant day when the two men walked into town. Seeing that everybody was excited, Jiraiya decided to ask one of the passerbys what was happening. It's the Midsummer Festival. There's games, food, souvenirs, and there's the Midsummer Poker Tournament, our biggest tournament of the year. Anyone of age is allowed to play, and the grand prize is 100,000 ryo. Replied the man. Thank you, said Jiraiya as he led Naruto a short ways away before finishing, biggest tournament of the year. Anyone allowed to play. 100,000 ryo prize. This is a prime place to look for Tsunade. In fact, if you were to enter the tournament, you would be guaranteed to run into her if she enters. As he was talking, he was also thinking of what he could do with the money if Naruto won. Insert nosebleed here. At this point he actually looked his young protege in the face, and frowned when he noticed Naruto glaring at him. What? Why should I enter a tournament? If I lose, I get nothing, and if I win, you're just going to take my winnings again, and once again I get nothing. It's a lose-lose situation, and I don't really like it. Responded the pissed-off blonde. Sigh. I promise I won't take your money, Gaki, I just want to find Tsunade. Said the white-haired man as he continued thinking of what he would do with the money. You better hope so. 'Cause I'm telling Gigi about your thieving when we get back, and I'm also telling this Tsunade. Said a smug Naruto, causing Jiraiya to pale whiter than a ghost. There's no need to I'll pay you back just until Tsunade I took your money. He shouted so quickly that it was rather hard for the genin to understand, but when he did, he realized he had prime blackmail material. I won't tell Tsunade, but I want my money by tonight. I'll enter the tournament to find Tsunade. That night, the festival was in full swing, children going from booth to booth playing games, winning prizes, parents following them, buying food, old men drinking sake on benches, and inside a large hall, the poker tournament was starting. There were ninjas, civilians, bums, company heads, and various other people, with everybody wearing formal clothing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Midsummer Poker Tournament. We will first be holding elimination rounds of 5 people per table. After those are over, we will be holding semifinals where the winners of those matches will once again play 5 per table, with the winners going to the final event and a chance to win the 100,000 ryo prize. Each dealer is a shinobi of Junin status to ensure that there is no cheating, but each of you is allowed 1 spectator to watch your back. Now, would all 125 contestants please line up for a number, and good luck. And with that, all of the contestants began to file off to their respective tables to begin, with Naruto getting some corporate fat cat with a thug with a katana behind him, a rather attractive young woman who was alone, a man who looked like a monk with what appeared to be his apprentice, and an old man who looked like he was about to crumble into dust with a very young boy who kept calling him, Gigi. They're letting children play. What a disappointment. I was hoping taking everybody's money was going to be fun. Grumbled the corporate man. You shouldn't discount him just because of his age, CEO-san. Said the monk, getting nods from the woman and the old man. Begin. 1.5 hours later. It had been a rather interesting hour, in which people did try to cheat and were disqualified, people accused others of cheating, people losing all their money, and people tried to get Naruto thrown out due to his age. It was the final round, and Naruto was taking his place. A child? What has the world come to where a child is in a poker tournament? Asked a blonde woman as she too took her place, with a rather attractive young woman with black eyes and hair, carrying a pig took her place behind her. Tsunade Haim, how are you? We should catch up when this is over, said Jiraiya, as he prayed that Naruto didn't do anything stupid. As long as you're buying the drinks, acquiesced the woman. If you're done yapping, I'd like to get on with the game, said an Iowa Junin, a man with straight black hair in a ponytail down his back, black eyes, leathery skin, and who was wearing the standard Iowa Junin attire, a red shirt with one long sleeve, black trousers, and brown flak jacket with a pouch on the front, with two long quivers with several kunai handles sticking out the end on each of his hips, and who was alone. I concur, said another businessman in a suit, who had what appeared to be his secretary behind him. The only response from the last player of the table, another woman with someone that looked like her husband behind her, was a nod. Final round. Winner take all, 5-card draw, ace high, let's begin, said the dealer as he cut the cards. 30 minutes later. The first victim of the game had been the businessman getting cleaned out by Naruto, followed by the woman getting cleaned out by the Iowa ninja, before the two of them took Tsunade's chips. All right, brat, you're pretty good at this, what do you say we make this interesting? Sudden death, all in on the next hand. The Junin asked Naruto as he pushed all his chips in the middle. I don't see why not, said Naruto as too he pushed all his chips in the middle. When it came time for the two of them to show their cards, the Iowa Junin went first. Read 'em and weep, brat. Ace of hearts, ace of diamonds, ace of clubs, king of hearts, and king of diamonds, aces over kings full house, I win, said the Iowa shinobi as he reached out for what Humed was his winnings. Sorry, but no, I think I win, said Naruto as he showed his cards one by one. 10 of spades, said Tsunade at his first card. Jack of spades, continued the businessman. Queen of spades, said a very surprised woman. King of spades, said a paling Iowa nin. Ace of spades, finished Naruto as he grabbed his chips. Royal flush beats full house, winner is Uzumaki Naruto, said the dealer, causing the audience to erupt into various sounds of celebration and disbelief. As Naruto was celebrating Naruto's victory and he was accepting his prize, no one noticed the Iowa ninja slinking off into the shadows, a dark look in his eyes. I don't know how you did it, and I don't care. But you will pay for this humiliation, you brat. I will make sure of that. 10 minutes later. Random bar. Well, Tsunade Haim, let's get right down to business. Sarutobi-sensei wants you to come back to the village, said Jiraiya in a serious tone that was immediately contradicted by him downing a shot in one go. No, I promised myself I would never go back there. I've lost too much, said Tsunade as she too downed a shot. Come on, Tsunade Haim, Sarutobi-sensei is offering you everything you ever wanted before you left, full reign of the hospital, a slew of med nins to train, money to pay off your debt collectors, you know, all that good stuff. But before she could tell him to shove his good stuff somewhere, bad place, Naruto spoke up. You should listen to him, Ba-chan, it sounds like a good deal, he said, unaware of his impending doom. What did you just call me? Asked Tsunade, who had her eyes shadowed by her hair. Ba-chan, but I don't see, he started before he was interrupted, aka punched through a wall by an angry woman. That's it, you brat. It's not bad enough you steal my money, now you have to insult me. I'm going to destroy you, shouted an irate blonde as she followed a confused and slightly concussed Naruto through the hole. All right, brat, since you're just a gaki, I'll take it easy on you and destroy you with just one finger, said Tsunade as she held up said appendage. Da datbeo, Naruto said confusedly. Go on, gaki, kick her, shouted Jiraiya from his position on the other side of the hole, as Tsunade's apprentice started panicking, talking about death and destruction of property, and worst of all, more debts that needed to be paid off. What the hell just happened, Kyuubi? Naruto asked his tenant as he sweat dropped at the behavior of the adults. Who the hell cares, Kit? Just kick her and be done with it, answered the Kyuubi, thinking it would be hilarious getting his container pounded into the ground by an old woman. I have no idea what's going on, but let's do this. shouted the blonde genin as he made that oh-so-classic hand sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique, causing 5 copies of himself to appear, startling his impromptu opponent, 4 of whom rushed her with their swords drawn as the original, and the final clone began to run through hand signs, which they completed just as Tsunade dispelled the last of the 4 clones without so much as a scratch. Futon. Daitapa, wind style. Great breakthrough. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, fire style. Grand fireball technique. As the two unleashed their attacks, they combined and created an explosion which engulfed Tsunade for a full 10 seconds before they cut off the chakra supply. Is she okay, boss? Asked the clone before he and the original were sent flying from behind, dispelling the clone and revealing a slightly singed Tsunade. Congratulations, brat. You managed to singe my clothes, but now I'm going to end this. At this, Naruto made a few more clones who charged while Naruto prepared his next attack. As the clones began to attack her, he held his right arm out with his palm up, with his left hand holding his wrist, unknowingly copying his copying sensei, focusing chakra into a spherical shape. When he was finished, he charged the surprised woman with the technique. However, it was not meant to be, as Tsunade used her Herculean strength to shatter the ground, causing Naruto to stumble and accidentally hit the ground with the technique, making the marks that showed it was incomplete. She then flicked his forehead, making his leaf Hittite fly off, before flicking him again, only this time in the stomach, making him fly off, thus ending the fight. What the hell are you doing? Teaching him that move, Jiraiya. Giving him false hope. You know he'll never master it. I mean, it took you a year to learn it and the fourth 3 to make it, and the 2 of you have, and had, talent. This no-name kid could never be able to do what you do. Shouted Tsunade to a cowering Jiraiya. What do you mean? Never master it? I could definitely do it. I bet you I could do it in 3 days. I have to be able to do the impossible if I want to be Hokage, Datbeo. Shouted Naruto, causing Tsunade to zone out for a second on flashbacks, before snapping out of it. Oh, is that so, brat? She asked, getting a devious idea. Tell you what, I'll make a bet with you. You master the jutsu in 3 days, and I'll come back to Konoha, and I'll even throw in this necklace. And if you lose, I get all of your winnings for tonight. Why would I want a stupid necklace? Asked the blonde, caught up in the moment. It was owned by the Shadaime Hokage, and is worth so much you could buy 3 mountains with gold mines in them if you sold it, said Jiraiya from his position on the other side of the hole. Deal. Naruto instantly shouted, causing everyone else to sweat drop, before adding a stipulation of his own, surprising the female Sannin. If I win, you also have to teach me and my friend Haku medical jutsu. But if I lose, I'll also give you this. He finished, holding up the scroll that said, medical seals. Medical seals, what are those? Asked Tsunade's companion. They are a set of seals that do things like convert regular chakra to medical chakra, permanently sterilize a room, or increase the potency of any medical chakra within a certain area. Explained Jiraiya, miffed that Naruto was willing to give Tsunade the medical seals scroll and not him. HMPH, fine brat, if that's the way you want to play, then deal. If you win, I'll come back to Konoha, give you my necklace, and teach you and your friend medical jutsu. But if I win, I get your 100,000 ryo and that medical seals scroll. It's a deal. See you in 3 days, said Tsunade as she walked off with her companion hurrying after her. HMPH, I'll show her. Wait. What the hell just happened? Shouted Naruto, once again confused as all hell. Dumbass. Shut up. You sure you can do that, Gaki? Asked Jiraiya, understandably concerned. I already can do it, Ero Sannin. Responded the blonde, startling the man, who couldn't believe that the boy had done it in just 2 weeks. What do you mean, Gaki? I saw it. You failed the jutsu. How can you know it? I've been able to do it for a couple of days now. I just have to use a clone to do so, said Naruto as he began walking to the hotel. I just need to up my training from a few dozen to a few hundred in order to do it one-handed. I hope for your sake you're right, Gaki, said Jiraiya as he watched his young protege walk off to prepare for the next day of training, before realizing that he was now stuck with the repair bill for the bar's wall. Next day, 9 o'clock at night, Naruto had made good on his promise to Jiraiya about his training regimen and had increased his clones to 250. It had been a full 14 hours of non-stop work, and he was mentally and physically exhausted. However, just as he was about to go to bed, he heard a knock on the door. When he opened it, it was revealed to be Tsunade's young companion who had knocked. "May I come in?" asked the woman. "Sure. Replied Naruto, not actually certain of his visitor's name. "Oh, how rude of me. My name is Shizune," she said, holding out her hand. "Ah, Naruto," he said back as he gave her hand a firm shake, "what can I do for you?" "You need to call off the bet," said Shizune seriously. "What?" asked a confused Naruto. "You need to call off the bet," she repeated, louder than last time. "You have no idea what's at stake here. I don't know what caused Tsunade-sama to bet that necklace, but you can't take it. It will only accept her wearing it, and if you take it, it will kill you. She already gave it to two others who were the most important people in the world to her, and they died the next day," she stated, shouting at this point. "I don't care. I will win that bet, and Ba-chan will be coming with us to Konoha. Something like a cursed necklace won't kill me, I still have to become Hokage." "You don't understand, you can't," started Shizune, before getting interrupted by Naruto. "I don't really care. If she knew the risks and still bet the thing, then I'm going to take it when I win. If she didn't want to let it go, then Ba-chan shouldn't have bet it. I guess I can't convince you to give this up, huh?" asked Shizune, getting a shake of the head from the boy. "Very well, just answer me one thing. Why do you keep calling her Ba-chan?" "Because she is," Naruto replied simply, then held up his hand, stalling any objection she might have. "She is Senju Tsunade, right? Granddaughter of Senju Hashirama, right? That means that she is the granddaughter of Uzumaki Mito, the first Hokage's wife. That means she is part Uzumaki, which means that, in some way, shape, or form, we are related," he finished, ecstatic that he had another person to call family. It was at that point that Naruto pulled out a photo and handed it to Shizune. As she looked at it, it was revealed to be a picture of him on his knees with an arm each around Kihi and Asagao in front of their home. "That's my Odoto-kun Kihi, and that's my Imouto-chan Asagao. I found them on a recovery mission to Uzugakure. They were being raised by a man named Arashi who asked me to take them to Konoha because they wanted to be ninjas and he couldn't go because he was dying, which is weird, because if he was so sick, then he shouldn't have been able to take us to Uzu. Anyways, he asked me to take care of them and to do everything I could for them. That's the reason I applied for clan status in Konoha. The moment I become Chunin, I become the head of the Uzumaki clan in Konoha, and if she wants, she's more than welcome to be a part of it," said Naruto with a tone that spoke the utmost certainty. It was at this point that Shizune got up and made to leave, saying, "I see. I hope you win your bet then. Tsunade-sama has been so sad since my uncle and her brother died, maybe being a part of a new family will let her move on, she deserves happiness." "Oh, Naruto, I also wanted to ask, who is this Haku?" she asked him, turning back, and was then surprised when her answer was a blush and another picture. This picture, while it had the three Uzumakis, it also had an old man in red robes, another man with gravity-defying silver hair and a mask, and a beautiful young girl around Naruto's age, who had straight black hair down to her waist, black eyes, and a light blue battle kimono with snowflakes on it. "The old man is Gigi," he began, before getting interrupted. "You call the Hokage, Gigi?" asked an incredulous Shizune. "Yep. Anyways, The masked man is Kakashi-sensei, and the black-haired girl is Haku-chan, he said, making Shizune raise an eyebrow, before a devious smirk appeared on her face. Oh, Haku-chan, does somebody have a girlfriend? She asked, making Naruto splutter and poorly deny the accusation. This is your sensei. If he's there, where are your squad mates? Asked Shizune, whose response was a rather sad smile. They didn't want to come, he answered, causing her to drop the subject. They then spent a little time trading stories of their respective sannin, and then said their goodbyes, preparing for the day of the bet, neither realizing that two people had heard the entire conversation, each with very different mindsets. Final night of the bet. It was the day to put up or shut up, the day that determined the fate of two individuals. It was the day for Naruto to demonstrate that he could use the Rasengan, and it was just Naruto and Tsunade that day as they walked out of the town. Jiraiya was still sleeping, and Shizune was cleaning her and Tsunade's room. Tsunade was acting rather strange in Naruto's opinion, and when he asked about it, she gave him the last answer he would have ever expected. It's just, I heard you talking to Shizune. She said, getting wide eyes from Naruto. I had never really thought about the Uzumaki side of my family, only really paying attention to my Senju heritage, so I thought I was all alone in this world. If I do come back, can I really live in the Uzumaki district? I'd like to meet the rest of my family. She asked, to which Naruto nodded his head before pulling out the same picture he showed Shizune of him and the twins. That's Kihi-kun, and that's Asagao-chan. I bet they'd love to meet you, especially Asagao-chan. You do seem to have that effect on kunoichi and those aspiring to be one. He joked, causing her to bop him on the head. That's good to know you little I'll be sure to visit them, said a voice from behind them. As they turned around, it was revealed to be the Iowa shinobi from the other night, except this time he had a scratch through his Hitai-8, symbolizing he was a Rouge Nin. After of course, I kill you tree huggers, loot your corpses, find my money, and maybe have a little fun with that black-haired whore. It was just going to go on their names from that conversation with the girl, but a picture will be so much easier. I'll also have to visit that girlfriend of yours. He finished as many more people surrounded the two of them. Conversation, you were listening? Asked Naruto as he got into a ready stance along with Tsunade. The first to kill one gets a reward, he shouted, causing several of his thugs to believing them to be a helpless woman and child rush them and what few civilians were in the area to flee. It was when the first man got to them, however, that a problem occurred. The man had foolishly attacked them from the front, going for a jumping vertical slash. That is, until Tsunade instinctually punched him hard enough in the stomach to liquefy his organs, forcing a large amount of blood out of his mouth, and onto Tsunade. Holy shit! Shouted everybody there except for Tsunade and, of course, the guy she just punched, staring at his prone form before looking at a trembling Tsunade, who had collapsed and was staring at the blood on her hands. I don't know what just happened, but I guess it was just a fluke. Kill them, the Iowa shinobi shouted again, once more prompting his goons to attack. It was as Naruto was defending the two of them when his shinobi instincts kicked in. He traded blow for blow with the bandits, knocking them out one by one, only getting a scratch or two, before they got smart and started going after Tsunade, making it difficult for him to defend, as they seemed to suddenly know the importance of coordinated attacks, not letting him have a moment to retaliate. However, even the most proficient of fighters make mistakes, and these were just a bunch of random a-holes. When a man stumbled on a rock on the path, it allowed Naruto to whip out one of his swords and, without thinking, slash it across his enemy's throat, making the rest of them back off. Incompetent bastards. I'll take care of this, shouted the Iowa leader as he stepped forwards drawing a pair kunai, each with a meter-long blade, two, from a quiver of them on each of his hips, one in each hand. Prepare to die you little tree hugger bastard, he screamed as he charged the young genin, who drew his swords and ran to intercept the man. When he was within reach, the Iowa nin thrust the kunai in his left hand, which Naruto knocked out of the way with a thrust of his own, which the Iowa nin dodged by jumping back around 20 feet. He then immediately threw his kunai at Naruto, drew 2 more, stabbed them into the ground to the handle, and started doing hand signs. As Naruto blocked the kunai, the Iowa nin finished and shouted Doden, second earth style, stone swords before pulling on the kunai, bringing them up, along with a coating of stone, making them a few inches longer, thicker, twice as heavy, sharper, and charged with chakra. He then charged at Naruto again, who also sent chakra to his own blades to counter. It was just not to be, however, as the Iowa shinobi was a Junin for a reason, as he simply overpowered and outran the blonde and started to simply slash at him without remorse. Some were blocked by Naruto's blades, and some by his haori, but he still got several severe slash wounds on his body, legs, hands, and a few on his face before getting kicked away. Dumbass, take off the weight, and kick this bastards. Whatever, you damn fox. Naruto mentally screamed as he put his hands in the Tora seal and flared his chakra twice, making all 150 pounds that his seals placed on him disappear before shifting to the cross seal and made a few cage bunshin before once again focusing chakra into making a Rasengan before charging the man, who had made a clone of his own and was destroying Naruto's. As he rushed the two of them, the clone noticed Naruto coming and placed itself between him and his master and took the attack, and while it was destroyed, it only got the spiral scarring, indicating that it was an incomplete technique. What was that supposed to be, brat? Was that the Rasengan? The fourth must have just been very lucky and fought nothing but Genin and Chunin if that was one of the jutsu that ended the war. Shouted the Rouge Nin as he destroyed the last of Naruto's clones, before charging him, causing Naruto to clap his hands together and thrust them at his opponent, shouting Futon. Yuha Sho, wind style. Beast wave palm, knocking the man back, giving him room to prepare his next jutsu as he skipped backwards. Futon. K's no Yeba, wind style. Blade of wind, he shouted before firing off the near invisible jutsu. However, the black-haired man dodged it, but not quickly enough, as he was cut on his left arm, causing it to become useless, and making him drop the blade. You little bastard. That's it. I'm going to kill you, but first I'm going to slit that whore's throat in front of you. Screamed Naruto's foe as he dashed towards Tsunade's still trembling form, drawing back his blade to end her life. Letting out a victory cry and closed eyes, the nin thrust with his weapon, and heard the satisfying sound of pierced flesh, before feeling something wrap around his hand. Opening his eyes, he saw Naruto standing over Tsunade with the rock-enhanced kunai buried in his left palm with his fingers wrapped around the mont's hand keeping him there. He was about to simply pull out of the boy's grip when 2 hands suddenly burst out of the ground along with a clone, the hands wrapping around his ankles, and the clone jumping on his back, and putting him in a triangle choke, preventing him from moving. The original then held out his right hand, gathering chakra once more into his newest jutsu. Ha, if that's what you're going to use, then I have nothing to worry about. Come on, you little tree hugger. The Iowa man taunted, causing Naruto to get so pissed he actually skipped the irrational thinking stage and became extremely focused. Naruto then shoved the spinning ball of chakra into the enemy's chest. At first, however, it didn't look like it was doing anything, before the leathery-skinned man gained an expression of pain, before vomiting blood and shooting off through a kiosk, leaving the kunai in the blonde boy's hand, and into a wall, where he fell to the ground in a lifeless heap. Naruto then pulled the kunai out of his hand, dropping it on the ground with a clang, before turning to Tsunade, who was once again having flashbacks. I win, Ba-chan. He said with a smile, which Tsunade returned, before Naruto was sent flying by a blow to the chest from a man who looked like a boulder with limbs, carrying a hammer that probably weighed more than Kihi did. You little bastard. You killed the boss. Let's get him, he shouted, making the others cheer as well. It also seemed to make something snap in Tsunade, as, with a loud scream, she immediately forgot the blood that covered her and punched the fat man, instantly killing him, before turning on his colleagues. It was at that point that Jiraiya and Shizune appeared, the latter going to check on the boy, and the former to join the blonde woman. It didn't even take a cursory glance for the young medic to see that there was a serious problem with the blonde. Tsunade-sama, his chest cavity is completely caved in. 3. I can't heal this, shouted the black-haired woman, making her master break off the slaughter, to join her. Shit, he's losing too much blood. He's not going to make it at this rate, said the Sannin, as she shoved a few hemoglobin pills into his mouth and then continued treatment. Come on brat, get up, she shouted as she saw her brother's and her lover's face overlap his. Damn it, damn it, damn it, Tsunade mentally screamed as she noticed the seal on Naruto's stomach start to shimmer. What is this darkness? Are you dying, Kit? I'm afraid I can't let that happen. You need to live if I'm going to kill that Uchiha bastard, said the fox, as he pumped as much chakra as he could into the boy to heal his injuries, not realizing how lucky he was that Naruto hadn't hurt him. Don't die, don't die, don't die, damn it, you can't die, was the mantra in Tsunade's head as she continued to pump as much medical chakra as she could into the boy in front of her, pulling every trick she knew to keep him alive, some that only she knew, before pausing at a tugging feeling around her neck. When she looked down, it was revealed to be Naruto's hand around her necklace, as he smiled at her and said, "This is mine now, Ba-chan," before once again going into unconsciousness. He's okay, sighed Shizune, glad that they had gotten Naruto out of immediate danger, though the two women continued treating him, as he could easily slip back. Being Hokage is your dream, huh? One more time, for the last time, I want to believe in someone. Become a great shinobi Gaki, become one that's even better than the person you are now, thought a smiling Tsunade, as she took off her necklace and put it on Naruto. Hospital next day 4 p.m. The first thing that Naruto ended up doing when he regained consciousness was the one thing he hated doing more than any other. He stared at the bland white ceiling of what Humed was a hospital room, judging by the smell of bleach and antibiotics wafting through the air. Why is it always white? Why can't it just be an awesome shade of orange or something? He asked the air, startling the person on his left, before he was glomped by Tsunade, almost causing his wounds to open up. Don't you ever do that again, do you hear me? She asked, getting a pained groan from the boy. You dumbass, Kit, you almost killed me, screamed the Kyuubi from his prison. Almost killed you. What about me? Demanded an indignant Naruto. What about you? Yuto. Naruto, shouted a voice, preventing the blonde from making a scathing comment to answer Tsunade. I'm sorry, I zoned out, what did you say? I just wanted you to know that when you're completely healed up, we're heading back to Konoha. Oh, okay, he said, nodding, before her words actually registered in his head. Wait, we? Yes, we. You won the bet, said Tsunade, pointing at the necklace Naruto was now wearing before continuing. Shizune is packing for us as we speak, and I also have to keep an eye on those siblings of yours. Kami forbid Jiraiya has an actual influence on them. That's true, Naruto told her, nodding, before a thought occurred to him. Wait, what about that guy the first was fighting? He asked, but before Tsunade could answer, someone else did it for him. You killed him, Gaki. Congratulations, that was Yoshida Nobo, a high B rank missing nin from Iowa. I sealed his body into a scroll so that you could get his bounty when we return to the village, said the voice, revealed to be Jiraiya sitting on the windowsill. I killed him, asked a trembling Naruto as he looked at this hands. Yes you did, Jiraiya told him with the most serious expression Naruto had ever seen on his face. While he was your first kill, he will not be your last. Murder, torture, theft, blackmail, extortion, and many more things that would send any normal civilian to jail are daily occurrences for shinobi, and if you can't take it then you need to find a new line of work, Gaki. Do you ever get used to it? Asked Naruto. No, no you don't. While you may be able to suppress the guilt, you will never fully get used to it, I haven't. And if ever you do, quit. If you ever stop feeling guilty at death, you have been doing this job for way too long. I understand Ero Sanin, said Naruto, making Jiraiya fall out the window and Tsunade laugh at the name. Damn it brat, I told you to stop calling me that, shouted the man, regaining his place on the sill. Nay, Ero Sanin, Naruto continued, making the man fall onto the floor on his hands and knees mumbling about, disrespectful brats, you know those kunai Nobo had, and the things they came in. They're called holsters dumbass. The kunai and their holsters. Why would you want those? You already have your swords, those. At this point the man made the, air quote bunny ears signs with his hands, Uzumaki shuriken, your sealing supplies, and the standard kunai and shuriken, why would you need anything else? Are you trying to be a weapons master? No, of course not. But just because I want to use them, doesn't mean that no one else will. I want to put them in the armory when we get back. He said with a smile, causing Jiraiya to do the same. Sure Gaki, I'll put them into a scroll for you. Now, on to more important business, why didn't you use those shuriken of yours, summons, or your koketsu? Well, I forgot, said Naruto sheepishly, causing three voices to say the same thing at the same time. Dumbass. 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 XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX revealed, it made a bit of a difference when you had a friend that could help you regenerate, a gene pool that made you almost impossible to kill, and the single greatest medic in the world on your side, and it was finally time for the group to go home with most of them being very excited. Jiraiya was excited because of future research, prospects, and because Naruto had told him that he would finally be able to see his experiment, if it went right. Naruto was excited to go home to see Haku, Asagao, and Kihi, as well as to see if his experiment went right. Shizune was eager to get going because she and Tsunade were finally able to stop roaming High no Kuni. Tsunade was excited because she would be able to run the hospital as she saw fit and to visit her new family. And Tun Tun was being carried by Shizune. About an hour after they had left, something with several descriptions happened, depending on the viewpoint. Naruto had found it awesome, Jiraiya and Tsunade had found it surprising and got into battle-ready stances, Shizune and Tun Tun had found it terrifying, a couple of spandex-wearing males would have found it youthful, in some manner or another, and a certain bun-haired girl would have found it highly erotic, for it was a massive explosion, large enough to form a mushroom cloud. Yes SSS. It's beautiful, Datebao, screamed an ecstatic Naruto as he fell to his knees, lifted his arms so they were parallel to the ground, and cried. What the was that? Screamed a terrified Shizune as Tun Tun buried her head into Shizune's clothes. It was my newest invention, responded the crying blonde. And what would that be? Asked Jiraiya, extremely worried about the blonde and his intentions with whatever it was he had made. Well, I like the explosions from tags, and I found it surprising that such a large blast could come from something so small, so I thought, what would happen if one were to make an exploding scroll? Said Naruto from his place on the tear-stained ground. Naruto, 4 things are going to happen. 1. You are going to teach me how to make that. 2. You are going to hand over all of the exploding scrolls you have now. 3. You are going to tell Sarutobi-sensei about this. And 4. I'm going to buy you all the ramen you can stuff into your face, you ingenious. Jiraiya told him, the volume of his voice increasing until he was shouting. Kanahagakure no Sato, Hokage Tower. And after Naruto's explanation, we proceeded home without complication, Sarutobi-sensei. finished Jiraiya as he stood in front of the Hokage's desk. Very well, Jiraiya. Naruto-kun, you may pick up your pay first thing tomorrow morning. Now, Naruto-kun, I'd like to see this exploding scroll of yours, and I request that you teach it to a few people whom I choose. As long as it's not Sakura or the Tem, I really don't care who you want me to teach it to. Though I would prefer that as few people as possible know about this Gigi. Responded the blonde. Very well. Anbu, please bring Nara Shikaku, the Anbu commander, 5, and my advisors here please. Asked Hiruzen as Neko appeared. Wait, Neko-san, could you also bring Higurushi and my younger siblings here as well? Asked Naruto. Please do so, Neko, said the Hokage as the female Anbu looked at him for confirmation. About 10 minutes later, the 7 people sent for arrived in the office along with Shimura Danzo, as he had been having a conversation with the advisors when they had been sent for. What is it you wish to discuss, Hokage-sama? Asked Mitokado Homura, one of the advisors and apparent spokesperson for the group asked. As the Hokage was about to answer, there was a rather shrill shout of, Aniki! As twin red blurs shot towards Naruto, knocking him over. After a tearful reunion, and introduction of the twins in Tsunade where she almost killed them both via suffocation with her massive S, the group was led by the Hokage to an isolated cliff overlooking a section of the forest. Would you please explain now, Hokage-sama? Asked Homura once more. If you would, Naruto-kun. He indicated the blonde, instead of answering. Well, I'm not sure what you're here to do, but I'm here to blow something up. Higurushi-san is here to witness it, and tell me if he wants to sell it in his shop. My siblings are here to meet Ba-chan, and Ba-chan is here to meet the twins. He responded. Interesting. And why would we be here to witness an explosion? Asked Utatane Kaharu, the second advisor. Instead of answering, Naruto made 5 clones, gave one a scroll, and sent him off. After about 5 minutes of conversation, Naruto stood up along with 2 of his clones and each shouted, one at a time. Fire in the hole, shouted the original, facing off to the left. Fire in the hole, shouted clone 1, facing forwards. Fire in the hole, shouted clone 2, facing right. 3, shouted the original again, facing the same direction. 2, shouted clone 1 again, also facing the same direction. 1, shouted clone 2, who was facing the same direction as well. 6. It was at that point that Naruto punched his final clone in the head, dispelling it. Then, after a brief delay, a massive explosion once again tore through the woodlands, forming a mushroom cloud. At this point, the shared thought in everyone's head, including those who had already seen it except for Naruto, was, holy shit. It took about 5 minutes to get everybody back to the world of the living, and after they did, Naruto had a discussion with the Hokage on who to teach. Naruto only wanted to teach Jiraiya, but the third asked him to also teach himself, Shikakao, Tsunade, and the Anbu commander as well, and that it would be listed as another B-rank mission, with pay, for him if he did. When that was settled, Naruto and Higurushi began to talk about selling the scroll, and eventually came to an agreement. Higurushi would sell it in his store, but customers would have to special order them, as the man didn't want something like that in his store for any extended period of time. One week later. It had been a busy week for pretty much everyone in the village, but none more so than 5 of the 6 residents of the Uzumaki district, and 1 ice user, Naruto, Kihi, Asagao, Tsunade, Shizune, Haku. Naruto was training pretty much non-stop on his chakra control in order to learn even the least effective of medical jutsu Tsunade had promised to teach him. 7. He had also learned and taught Tsunade and Shizune the seals that could convert regular chakra to medical chakra. That little fact pissed off Jiraiya to no end, and was moving on to various other medical seals, though he had slowed down with them for the moment. He would also train with both the twins and Jiraiya. The twins were placed into the academy, which was an extremely proud day for the three Uzumakis and lead to the three of them being placed in the hospital for overeating at Ichiraku's as Tsunade and Shizune teased them while Tun comforted them. For Tsunade and Shizune, they had moved into one of the houses in the Uzumaki district. Tsunade had then turned the hospital on its with the help of Shizune, training several medics to enhance their abilities, and training new ones, including, and in this story, most importantly, Haku. Tsunade would also attend meetings with Jiraiya and the third Hokage, in which no one knew what happened. Haku would spend most of her days with Tenten, who helped her with her weapon skills, in the hospital, working on her medical skills, and working directly under Tsunade, for whom she had become a second apprentice, or with Naruto. It was a rather nice day and Naruto and Haku were eating together on a bench after getting some onigiri, ate when two square rocks with eye holes walked up to them. After the two of them stared at the boxes and vice versa for a few minutes, Naruto finally couldn't handle it anymore. What are you doing? I've repeatedly told you that rocks aren't rectangular. That's just like you to figure it out, just what I'd expect from my rival, said one of the rocks, as they began to flash a bright white before exploding in a massive amount of smoke. Cough, 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 too much smoke, said a voice as the smoke cleared, revealing 6 children, 5 of whom were wearing goggles on their foreheads. I am the future Hokage, Konohamaru, said a boy with brown hair and eyes, a long blue scarf, and a skull cap, as he struck a pose. I am the sassiest kunoichi in Konoha, Moegi, said a little girl with orange hair done up in 2 gravity-defying pigtails and blush marks on her cheeks, as she too struck a pose, but behind and to the left of Konohamaru. I'm the smartest boy in Konoha, Udon, said a boy with his black hair in a bowl cut, snot coming out of his nose, and glasses, as he struck a pose behind and to the right of Konohamaru. I'm annoying. Naruto interrupted the boy, who turned out to be Kihi. That's not fair, Aniki. You should have let him finish, said Asagao, who had her hands on Kihi's shoulders as he crouched in the dirt with a raincloud over him. Can I go now? Asked the only one who wasn't wearing goggles, a girl that was a Hyuga based off her eyes. Sure, Hanabi, sighed Konohamaru, prompting the girl to leave. You said you were gonna play ninja with us today, Aniki, said a recovered Kihi. I find it cute, but why would you play ninja, Naruto-kun? Asked Haku. She likes him, was the combined thought of the 5 children. Because they want to be ninjas, explained Naruto. It helps with things like evasion, kunai and shuriken throwing skills, hiding, detection, trap making, and other things, explained Naruto to a nodding Haku. Is this your girlfriend, boss? Asked a smirking Konohamaru, making the 2 teenagers blush. I like this one more than that bitch with the huge forehead, he remarked, causing the other 4 children to nod their heads. Then, an aura of death enveloped the area, making Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udon slowly turn and see a demonic Sakura. Kihi and Asagao were concerned as well, but only for the other 3's safety, since while Naruto was around, his natural, Aniki instincts, pretty much made them untouchable, as demonstrated when Sakura ate dirt the first time she had tried to hit Kihi for in his presence for being rude. You brat, screamed Sakura. At this, the Konohamaru ninja squad ran away screaming, followed by a furious Sakura. Let's go make sure Sakura doesn't kill them, sighed Naruto, prompting the other 3 to follow him. As they neared the corner, they heard a voice say, "Hey you little shit, that hurt." Well, that's that. Now here's an omake. Omake. Jiraiya's teaching methods. It was an average day in Konoha. The birds were chirping, the trees were green, several individuals were leaving to go shed the blood of people they didn't know, and somewhere a blonde-haired boy and a white-haired man were having their first lesson. Why am I supposed to wear this? Asked Naruto as he fiddled with a collar with a rather large black box on it that Jiraiya had made him put on. Cookie, if you know what it is. Just a little incentive to get the seals right, responded the pervert, as he fiddled with a small black cylinder with a red circle on top that fit in the palm of his hand. All right, I want you to write the most perfect Raiden barrier tag I showed you that you can. I don't care about speed, I just want quality. At this, Naruto nodded and took out his sealing supplies, a brush, an empty paper tag, and a bottle of ink made with his blood. Naruto slowly drew the seal for the tag as well as he could. After about a minute, he was finished. Blowing on it to dry the ink, he then handed it to Jiraiya for quality inspection. 2 minutes of examination later, Jiraiya had a solemn expression on his face. Sorry Gaki, this isn't up to snuff, I'm going to have to punish you. He finally said. What do you mean AAAHHH? ZZZAAAPPP. Get up you big baby, it was only 25,000 volts, scolded the Toad Sanin as he glared at the twitching form of his apprentice. What the hell was that? Screamed Naruto, still having muscle spasms on the ground. A shock collar, replied Jiraiya nonchalantly. What? Why would you give me a shock collar? Asked the blonde. So you'll get it right, and it's funny as all hell, said the Sanin as he pushed the button again. AAAHHH. Now man up and write that tag again. How about you put this damn thing on, see how much of a man you are? Grumbled Naruto. Unfortunately for Naruto though, the Sanin had heard him. Are you kidding me? That crap hurts, there's no way I'm putting that thing on, he said as he once again pressed the button. AAAHHH. Yep. Just another average day in Konoha. You brat, screamed Sakura. At this, the Konohamaru ninja squad ran off.